With Jamie Smart, and we're at his home in Leicester in England. So hi Jamie.
Hi Nadia.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to meet you.
I know we missed each other in Las Vegas, but here we are. So I really just wanted to take a moment out and just get to know you and allow people that may not know you personally just to get a chance to know you. Is that okay?
Sure, sounds great.
So I understand that you're from Canada. Is that true?
Yeah, well actually I was born in England.
Yeah.
And then my parents migrated to Canada when I was 2. And so I grew up on the west coast of Canada. I grew up in British Columbia, in Victoria.
Love British Columbia.
It's a beautiful part of the world.
It's so gorgeous, yeah. Lots of lakes and fishing and
hunting and shooting and fishing
stuff.
and whatnot. Yeah.
I love British Columbia.
Yeah.
So how long have you lived in England? How long have you been back here?
I moved back to England in 1986, so what's that? That's like 23 years ago.
Yeah,
a long time.
And so was it a difficult transition to come back to England from British Columbia?
Well, it was kind of a weird transition. I mean, Victoria, British Columbia is like sort of a 50s style England anyway, which is a very weird kind of place.
You can get HP sauce.
Yeah,
so it's good.
But it's actually like a version of England that used to exist at some time in the past in a movie or something.
Yeah.
So coming to live in England, I'd been here on holiday and kind of liked it, and I wanted an adventure and I wanted to go try different things and that sort of thing. And so yeah, I guess it was the kind of transition that you would get moving anywhere that's kind of culturally different when you're 20 years old, as I was then. So yeah, it was an exciting adventure. I kind of came over here to find out what was going on and make my fortune and that sort of thing. And I don't know why I chose here, but
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of people come to England from all over the world all the time anyway. I really like it.
Yeah.
So when you came here, what was your first job? What kind of industry were you in?
Yeah, first industry I got into was the publishing industry. I was working for Oxford University Press back then, which was basically an academic publisher. And I was living in Oxford, and so I was working as a computer operator. I kind of worked my way up through the ranks doing computer programming and business analysis and that sort of thing. Doing the rounds of the various publishing companies in the area.
And how did that go?
Yeah, that was okay. It was nice to. Back when I lived in British Columbia, all of my jobs were what you call service industry jobs. So hotel, waiter, bar, that kind of work. So it was nice to be doing something that was
different and using your noddle.
Yeah, something that involved some brain work.
Were you in Leicester?
No, I was. That was in Oxford.
Oh, that's right.
Because I've bounced around the UK since I've been here. But then I got into doing project management. Again, for publishing companies, doing bigger projects, software projects, and that sort of thing. And that's when I really started getting interested in what makes people tick, and that sort of. It's funny, I met up with a friend of mine who I hadn't seen since I'd been at school. And he said, and I told him what I was doing, NLP and hypnosis and stuff. He goes, "Oh, you were always into that sort of thing."
Oh, isn't that interesting?
And now I'm not sure whether it's that I was always into that sort of thing, or whether he just couldn't imagine that I'd changed, so he'd reversed engineered me into it. But either way, it's sort of
awesome.
Yeah.
So when you were working at the publishing house in Oxford, were you doing self-help, looking at some things about trying to find your own identity?
Not really at the time. Back in those days, my main pastime was getting loaded. I used to really like drinking huge quantities of alcohol and taking drugs. That was kind of my so yeah.
Well, you're not the only one. A lot of people have had that in their past.
Anything to do with self-help or personal development or anything like that, I would just have taken the piss out of. I would have been ridiculing and that sort of thing, because it was I think a lot of that behavior in terms of drinking and drugging and that sort of thing was, unbeknownst to me, was medication in effect. So I was choosing a different path to dealing with what we might call psychic challenges or whatever it might be. So
interesting. So what was the turning point for you then? Do you remember?
Yeah, very clearly. I got married.
Tell us about that.
I got married, and 3 weeks notice, because I had always claimed I'd never get married as well.
Isn't that the best way? Just
so.
meet him and marry him.
Yeah, I think that.
The next week, right?
Yeah. I think that whole spend a couple of years planning it thing is way too painful.
Overrated.
Yeah. 3 weeks was challenging enough. But got married 3 weeks. Like very much in love. Very, knew I was with someone I wanted to be with.
Wonderful.
And but after a month, her bags were packed because I, raving alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, I'm going to stop drinking. And so I stopped drinking. But of course, when I stopped drinking, all the stuff I'd been medicating over the past, however long, I guess sort of the previous 18 years really, because I started drinking when I was 12, all that stuff started coming to the surface. And so I started looking for ways to deal with that didn't involve substance abuse and
that's that difficult, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, wasn't it? It was. But it took me on a real journey, and one of the things that emerged for me was a sense of spirituality. And up until then, I'd been, because I'd always been pretty smart, and so I assumed, as smart people often do, that they know everything.
Right, of course.
And I was like, well, I know everything, and I know if something's going to make sense or not, and I know if something's going to work for me or not. I was actually very, very small-minded. I was very, very closed-minded. And I
sort of set in your ways.
Yeah, very kind of set. I mean, I was open-minded if it sounded like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But in terms of the way the world worked, I think I used to, I was kind of setting my ideas about the way the world.
I like the way you're explaining that, because I think that really is kind of more of a knowing yourself process, growing up, and many of us have had so many different experiences. And we're not always the same person. So I like the way that you're sharing that. Thanks for sharing that with us. And I'm hoping it'll help somebody else.
Well, the funny thing is, the kind of life I've got today, in terms of not only the way I live and lifestyle and that sort of thing, but more importantly, internally, in terms of the kind of well-being I have access to and that sort of thing. Stuff that wouldn't even have been possible for me. Like, it was totally outside of my... Because I thought, back then, I thought that the way I thought about the world and the way I felt about the world and about myself, that was just the way it was.
Yeah, right.
In fact, I remember I was telling someone about this the other day, that when I was working, I guess this would have been in like 95, 96, so 13, 14 years ago. And I had a job doing something that provided me with some pretty good money, but I didn't enjoy doing it. And I had friends who were doing similar jobs, but they were doing it on a contract basis, so they were getting paid a lot more money, had a lot more freedom to do the stuff they want. And I knew that I couldn't do that.
How so?
Well, I just knew that there was something different about me that meant I couldn't do that I couldn't go out and do the stuff I love to do and that sort of thing. And I didn't even challenge it. It was just one of those things. I just knew that was the case.
Like so many people.
And it was actually only when I went on my first NLP course that I realized that it was unchallenged beliefs about myself and the world that I was just accepting as true.
Now, Jamie, tell me, how did you get from understanding that you had an addiction to alcohol and possibly some drugs as well, to going through your stuff and everything just dropping out, the bottom just dropping out of your world, and your wife had left? And how long was that journey before you went to your first NLP course? And how did you get to your first? What happened to make you go there?
Well, funnily enough, the wife only threatened to leave, and that's when I stopped. But she had a book addiction. And she was saying, those book clubs where you get 10 books free for a penny or whatever.
Right?
Yeah, there you go.